Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And if you thought the drama with regard to throwback chals was over, you were sorely mistaken. This time MuTeX in the firing lines of Scrappy after apparently forgetting to pay up after a bit of a high roller wager, especially after all the sound equalization drama of just the other day. Also on that talking point, right, lots of discussions as to whether we need to go back to console Call of Duty and how much superior that was to what we're currently playing at. Many questions to be asked on this one. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. That Diaz-Paul fight went on last night and I don't know, I didn't actually watch it because it was like 4:30 my time, but I know that people did, and every time I see like COD people commenting on these fights, I always think, damn, like we need to get that going in the COD scene at some point. Our scene is just built for it, and in the off-season getting like, I know that Crim has joked about it, right? Like Crim versus Formal would be a good time. There'll be other fights that would be a good time as well to see, just like, you know, age-old rivalries to be brought back to the fore. I think would be a good time. Maybe Shotzzy's down for it at some point or another. Also, quick update on what's going on HCS Salt Lake City. OpTic have been an interesting spot lately with their team, with Formal, of course. So I think Formal was absolutely frying in this one. They took down Quadrant earlier on in the day. Then, though, they lost to Space Station again. I think they got reverse swept here, actually. I think they went up 2 and got reverse swept. Might be wrong about that one. But they did lose in pretty tragic fashion, to be fair. And then, of course, as expected, Sentinels go on to play Space Station in the winners' finals going into today. And OpTic had to take down Native Red to secure their spot on Championship Sunday. They'll play FaZe. So, yeah, definitely a pretty stacked top 4, as you'd expect. Feels like these top 4 teams, like every single time there's a Halo tournament at the moment. And, yeah, OpTic will play in the loser side. This is MT, is that mountain time? I think it's 6 hours behind my time. So, it's in Utah, right? Salt Lake City. So, anyway, that's your update on that side of things. OpTic are through to the Championship Sunday. And, of course, with Formal there, which is the main reason I talk about this, because I'm interested to see what Formal is up to. But they have been looking somewhat shaky lately, it's got to be said, and they're certainly not the favourites going into this one, as they were a while ago when they were winning absolutely everything towards the end of last season. And as Formal himself says, weird day, we made it to Sunday, GG's to SSG and Native Red. I wonder if they bow out here, like exactly whether they'll consider some changes to their roster at some point in the future, but of course that might be quite a way away. Black Ops 3 Charles, there have been a big discussion point. Yesterday we dived into all the drama with regard to sound equalization or loudness equalization, whatever you want to call it, and I certainly do miss the days that these throwback chals were played on console, right? I think the COD was just better in the console days. We used to call COD a controller or a console esport. Now it's kind of got to be considered a controller esport because that's what people used to play on it, whereas, you know, back in the day it was just consoles and controller was kind of a given, and it was the best console esport. And since it's gone to PC, pretty much since the start of the franchise era, there've been so many problems with it being on PC. And yeah, PC has its advantages in terms of performance and other factors, but for a lot of reasons, the game was somehow more pure when it was on the console days, when it was on the PS4, on the Xbox One or whatever, and yeah, even the Xbox 360, of course, and PS3 way back in the day was a very good time. Nowadays on the PC, it's not quite the same for reasons such as loudness equalization, and the thing is, like, that also exists for games like Counter-Strike, but their game is so much better refined from a competitive perspective that if somebody is running, you hear them anyway, and if they're walking, they're completely silent. Whereas in COD, you've got the issue that dead silence is never fully dead silence, and anything that it can improve the volume is going to be really beneficial, where it's not necessarily the case in those other games. So yesterday we saw the drama with the Black Ops 3 Charles going down, and Dashy was frustrated, and for good reason, as to why he can't seem to get a chal where anyone actually upholds integrity. Surely it's better for, you know, the gameplay experience for everyone to turn off the loudness equalization, but Dashy similarly couldn't get that to happen, and MuTeX and, well, it was Cellium and Prolute on the other team were seemingly using it. Now, it turns out there's a little bit more to this story than we discussed yesterday, just because it doesn't seem like MuTeX was primarily the man at fault. Now, does he have to share some of the responsibility for this? I would say yes. If you're not turning off the loudness equalization, I think, you know, I don't know what you're playing at, to be honest, but still, he decided not to, and he was joking around with Dashy like, oh, I'll tell you how to use my settings and all this. But apparently Prolute was the real villain in this. For those that are actually watching the stream, they were talking about how, you know, for those that were watching it, it was Prolute who said no. And I think they were going to do a chal, and Prolute was like, no, I'm used to using it, so I'm going to keep it it on. Dashy was like, oh, we'll take it off, and I think MuTeX agreed, and Cellium was like, yeah, sure, we'll just turn it off and not use it here and actually uphold the GA. And MuTeX, given the fact that he doesn't have a great reputation in the scene, is, you know, people jump on him pretty fast. And I could understand exactly why here, to be fair, but apparently he wasn't the primary villain in this story, and the primary villain was actually Prolute. Now, we will talk about more drama, of course, with MuTeX here in a second, but I will say it's pretty interesting if Prolute was refusing, as apparently he was, to turn it off, and was the primary reason why they couldn't seem to get a chal without it, because Prolute's been playing a lot of high roller chals, and look, from his perspective, he's been in the Pro League during the Vanguard season. He was on OpTic. This is what confuses me a bit. He was on OpTic with Dashy on that team when iLLeY was unwell and had to step away. So you'd have thought, and Dashy gave Prolute a lot of respect, right? A lot of credit during that time. There was all this talk about the system that Prolute had helped bring in and how valuable it was to the team. Or really, it was like iLLeY had brought the system in and then Prolute was filling the gaps very well. And he did do a great job, Prolute, when he subbed in for OpTic during the Vanguard year for that brief period of time before they eventually went and, you know, iLLeY returned and it wasn't quite working towards the end of the season. But you'd think there might be a little bit more respect between the two of them than that. And also, Prolute's probably been doing this against iLLeY as well, despite the fact that they're boys or whatever, because, and look, I get it, because Prolute, he was in the league, now he's not in the league, it's going to be difficult for him to get back in the league. He was on Vegas right at the start of last season, didn't work out for him, so, you know, he can actually make some money here by winning these chals, so I get it, right? You want to make sure you've got all the advantages you can, but nonetheless, in terms of integrity, it's not exactly right up there. Now, MuTeX has been involved in other dramas, though, as well, especially with regard to actually paying up these chals. Drazah was calling out somebody last night as well for this, and we'll get onto it in a second, but he called out this guy Tolerance, who was basically, don't bet with this guy, he scams. So if you're playing these chals for $1,000, $3,000, whatever, or even just a series of 8s with, like, let's say you put $100 up each, you've got to rely on the integrity, not just in the game of your opposition for not using loudness equalization, but also for them to actually pay you the money at the end of the day. Now, MuTeX has been involved in plenty of chals over the years, and, you know, I imagine on this circumstance he probably just forgot and it was in good faith, but we don't exactly know, and Scrappy wasn't happy that MuTeX has simply not paid him, and then MuTeX was like, oh, if you're going to talk like that, I'm definitely going to scam you out of your money. So, you know, just classic search and destroy kid drama, but at the same time, it doesn't reflect great on MuTeX again.
Yeah, like whenever I'm really bored, just hopping around.
Charles, you owe me money. Charles, you owe me money.
You owe him money. You owe him
$100.
You owe him $100, Charles.
Hey, what do you mean? The fun 8.
I never paid you?
What? No, because you got pissed on so bad, you just got off.
Oh.
Yeah, Charles, can I get an invite, bro?
Alright, well, now that you said that, you're getting scammed.
Oh.
Yo, can I get an invite, please? Invite.
PayPal's in the DM.
I'm not sending shit.
PayPal's in the DM.
Definitely not sending shit. Definitely not. You can come get it in person. Come get it.
So Scrappy hasn't really been tweeting that much, to be fair, as of late, but, you know, there's always some drama brewing with this guy around the corner, and yeah, it's difficult to say exactly what's going to happen there, what the future is going to be, but I know people have said, like, they keep letting MuTeX into these throwback chals, and every single year he's causing some drama, which does seem to be the case, to be fair, because he used to be an S&D kid, he joined Dallas Empire as their S&D analyst, he got kicked for saying, I actually forget what he said on stream, but anyway, he said something on stream, he got fired for it, basically, did this, like, incredible copy pasta when he got fired, you know, good luck finding anyone better than me, we talked about it yesterday, and now he's back, you know, after doing the Warzone thing, he's back playing some Search and Destroy chals for money, and he's back into the drama straight away. I will also mention, though, we've got to talk about the whole console versus PC thing. I used to enjoy a lot more when it was on console back in the day. PC God has introduced an array of issues that have, I think, been problematic. And also, you've got to realize as well, back on consoles, we used to be able to play LAN, and it was proper LAN. Nowadays, the PCs don't do it. You don't plug the PCs into each other. Yes, it's LAN and they're playing in person next to each other, but they're still playing on an online server. Back in the day, you would plug the PS4s, you would plug the Xboxes into each other, and they would be playing on literally like as good to 0 ping as you could possibly get. it's not really like that nowadays, and you tend to find, which is maybe surprising, but I think it is true, that, well, maybe it's not surprising because the PCs have so many more parts, that there's more tech issues, there's more delays than you used to get with the PlayStations or the Xboxes back in the day. Now, I don't think we're going to be going back to this, right? Well, when Microsoft comes in, we might, we'll see, I suppose. There is a chance that Microsoft comes in and says, you know what, let's run it back and actually play on the Xboxes again, or whatever their current console is going to be at that point. But maybe, you know, obviously Microsoft are big on the PC stuff as well, so Xbox exists across both platforms. I don't expect us to go back to console, but I do think that it could be a better circumstance, especially for the S&D scene. Like, maybe the S&D scene should just say, you know what, fire up the PS5s or the PS4s, and let's just actually play these throwback games on those consoles, and the experience would be much better for these chals, which I think would be the case, and you'd have less of the issues that they've got on PC. So I do miss those days. I don't think they're going to come back, but it's something to at least consider, to be fair. And just before we close, I wanted to mention a quick Rostermania thing. So Carly actually came up with a really cool Miami Heretics theoretical jersey design. I know that the logo's been getting a little bit of flack, to be fair. This is actually their new Heretics logo here. So we looked at the old school one the other day. This is what they currently go by. It's pretty good. And anyway, yeah, 2023 concept. Thought this is rather nice. And straight into Vikul's likes. This goes implying that, yeah, he's going to be there next season, whatever it's going to be called, probably the Miami Heretics. Yes, people don't tend to really like the logo, and I'm inclined to agree, to be honest. I think they could have done a better job. But Vikul is almost certainly going to be there. Now, the Spanish team they are forming is somewhat interesting compared to the fact that many have looked at the likes of Rencor or Super or Real as being some of the best Spanish options, but yet they're going for JurNii, Lucky, Erikboom, and MettalZ, it seems. Now, they can't play 5v4. One of those guys has got to be on the sub bench, but and we don't really know who it'll be yet, but it does seem like they're forming a team that many, you know, if you had to build an all-star Spanish team, you might not form the roster that they're forming, but there might be various reasons for that. And just one final stat here from JP Krez on the OpTic side. This is like a crazy stat. By signing Priestahh and Slasher this offseason, Boston have picked up the number 1 and the number 4 players in hardpoint stuns thrown per death, respectively, which is just pretty hilarious. So I guess every life you get one stun grenade to use, and Priestahh is using them at like 0.87 times per life, which is pretty impressive. Cellium is just behind, then Skyz, Slasher, Ghosty, and etc. This stat is in some sense kind of useless, just because throwing them doesn't really matter as much as where they actually go. I can spawn in, and every life I can just chuck a nade up into the sky, and that actually used to be the meta in World War II. People would just spawn in and launch their nade straight away, and maybe for good or for ill. But, you know, some players use their tacs a lot, some players don't really bother throwing them at all. Scump, I remember, like, would barely ever throw his stuff, it seems, when he used to, at least his tacticals, whereas these players are using them all the time. But I think of all of the top guys, from the eye test, Cellium tends to use them rather effectively. I don't know if Priestahh is just spawning in and launching them across the map, and therefore he's getting good on this stats, but are they being impactful? I don't know if we really have the, you know, the in to the API on the back ends to figure out whether that's the case or not. But very much interested in your perspective on all this in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.